So there was a little bit of difficulty kind of getting along with peers
Many
and
immigrant kids, and I just remember being able to fit in really well with everyone because we
I am a silicon design engineer, which is part of
had to seek out my own resources in that regard.
my name is Jerson Mobo, and I was born in Manila, the Philippines, and I immigrated to Canada when I was 9 years old.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to meet you. My name is Jelaine Santiago. My pronouns are she and her. I was born in a small city called Malolos, Bulacan in the Philippines, and we immigrated to Canada when I was 3 years old in March 1993. I am 33.
My name is Justin Roy Bukiron. I was born in Singapore. I immigrated to Canada in 2003. I was 4 years old then. And I am now 24 years old.
So my name is Shane Torres. I am a registered social worker, and right now I am 23 years old. I immigrated to Canada when I was around 13.
I arrived when I was 9, so I was in elementary school. So, of course, with elementary school, you're always trying to fit in. For me, there was a bit of a culture shock, of course, and a language shock as well, because I didn't speak English that well. Um, so there was a little bit of difficulty kind of getting along with peers and a little bit of bullying there.
I was pretty much raised here since we came here. I've had no issues per se. I mean, Canada and Toronto is very diverse as a community, so I never really had any issues of being left out per se. Since I was young, I also learned English fairly quickly, so it was pretty straightforward.
Yes, definitely. I think it's also very subtle. I think, there were cases of both subtle but also not very subtle situations. So when we first moved in to Toronto, we were growing up. We were staying with my aunt, and then we eventually moved to Scarborough. So Scarborough, I was one of many immigrant kids, and I just remember being able to fit in really well with everyone because we all came from different backgrounds. And then we moved to Markham later on when I was in grade 7. And in Markham, it was really not the Markham it is today. I was one of the few non-white kids. And I felt very much like confused about what that experience was like, suddenly going from a place where there are a lot of people that look like me to now going into this other neighborhood or this other kind of environment where now I felt very much like one of the Asian kids in the class. And that shift in identity was very challenging.
I did not get that much in terms of like support. I did not grow up or I did not move into like the part of Canada that is there's a lot of newcomers coming in. It is like a kind of like a smaller town compared to like Toronto is. So it's in Hamilton. So there's not a lot of newcomer families that are in there. I had to seek out my own resources in that regard.
Yeah, when I was really young, I honestly didn't really have anyone to speak to. I spoke to my friends, and I did have a few close Asian friends who I could speak with, but who also were different. So I think that's a challenge that we have as an immigrant. But to be honest, most of it was just like me kind of internalizing a lot of those things on my own. Like now I realize I could have gone to like therapy, and that there are programs at school, and like there are also social workers at schools that I also did not even know. I don't think it was really available at the time when I was in school. So I think there are more supports now. But I think also there is like a lot of communities online as well that you can connect with.
So right now, I'm a family physician and an HIV primary care physician.
I am CEO and co-founder of my own business. I actually run 2 businesses that are e-commerce companies. So we sell online, but they're both focused on Filipino jewelry. So the first company is Cambio & Co. that is focused on celebrating Filipino craftsmanship. We make earrings like this and necklaces and jewelry that's all made actually by artisans in the Philippines. And we also have Cinta & Co., which is focused on weddings. So I get to work with couples and people planning their weddings who really want to celebrate their culture on their wedding day.
So I am a silicon design engineer, which is part of electrical and computer engineering.
So I am a social worker by profession. I would probably say that like my experience as like a newcomer here and as a child really did impact like why I chose this path to be my main career. My university experience was not the easiest at all. I was raised by a single mother, so in terms of like finances and whatnot, it was a really tight budget for us for me to be able to go to university here in Canada. There are a lot of organizations, as I have known, that are willing to help. So during my high school, I ran into like a church community group where they do have like a scholarship program and sponsorship program for any low income families that are trying to send their kids into university or college, which is how partially I funded my university career. I also did apply for OSAP and I got academic bursaries during my time in university.
So I studied first nursing as my undergraduate degree. Um, and then I continued on after I graduated nursing. I got into medical school at McMaster University. Um, and then after medical school, we do kind of specialist kind of training, and I chose family medicine as my specialty, and that which was another 2 years. In terms of just navigating, back then, the internet wasn't as good as now. Like people are more connected now with Twitter and stuff. So I didn't really have any kind of role model back then. Like we didn't know any doctors, or I'm the first doctor in the family, so I didn't have any aunts and uncles or to kind of ask how do you get there, right? So basically I did my own research. Starting off in high school, to get scholarships you really need good grades. So that was kind of one focus in during high school, is to get top grades, try to get a high average, because when you go to university they'll give you a specific scholarship depending on your grade. At least that's how it worked back then. So in my undergrad in nursing, I was able to get quite a bit of scholarships, and then whatever was left off, of course, my parents paid for or helped me pay for. But in terms of medical school, it's super expensive. But it's really what I wanted to do, and the lucky thing here, at least when I started training, once you get into medical school, the banks are able to give you loans, like pretty much for your whole medical school experience. Like you could live off of those, of the line of credit, basically. So, yeah, and you just have to pay it off after. But it's fine if that's what you want to do. You have to make sacrifices.
My career path has been very winding, but I guess to summarize it, I actually went to university thinking I could go I could be a veterinarian. I studied animal sciences and like animal biology specialty at the University of Guelph, graduated with a major in biological sciences and a minor in political science, because I was always really interested in like social justice and just learning about international development and those sort of things. So I kind of combined them. I graduated from university to study that, to be a veterinarian. But then I ended up changing career paths and went back to school to George Brown College to study human resources. So I actually ended up working for 2 years in a financial tech company in Toronto, once I finished my college program. And then while I was working in that field, I just realized like, this isn't the field for me. I'm not very, I think corporate was just not something that made me feel very like good or very happy in terms of that environment. And so I did a lot of soul searching and took on a bunch of freelance projects, just started taking on some different marketing clients, but just taking on odd jobs for a little while until I realized, until essentially we built the business to what it is today.
Ever since I was a kid, I've always loved computers, PCs, and stuff like that. When I was in elementary school, I learned about these companies, AMD, Intel, NVIDIA, those three big companies, which are very huge in the PC market space. I was still going through high school. I took academic courses, which just related to computer engineering. I didn't take any biology or anything like that. I just focused. I know what I want to do, so I just focused my programs into computer engineering, and so I got into Ryerson. Ryerson has a co-op program, so you can enroll in the program, and then between third and fourth year, if you manage to land a co-op, you can work for 12 to 16 months at a company. So I managed to land one at AMD after like 60 applications. So yes, 60 applications. And that's I worked in designing. So after I completed my 16-month internship, I completed my fourth year, and they hired me back full time. So that's how I ended up working at AMD, which was my dream job. It's really cool that I work with products that are used by everyone. So I mean, I've chips that are in the Xbox, PlayStation. Those are chips from our company, and there are also recently processors that I worked on in my internship that were just released this year. So there's a huge NDA for a couple of years before the product goes out the door. And it's really cool, like how I've worked on a project now and seeing it release a couple of years down the road. And it's just like, hey, like I worked on that. And also, speaking of which, this recently is our product that was released just last year. This is something I worked on during my internship. We worked on something called the Infinity Fabric on this processor.
I feel like what I like most about being a social worker is the connection that you make with people, because you're really integrated into the community and people welcome you into their homes and into their lives, and you're sharing kind of like such intimate relationship with people.
What I like most about being a family doctor is you have a big scope of practice. Like it's a huge scope from babies to the elderly. Um, so we say in family medicine, we take care of you from cradle to grave, basically. And the second thing about family medicine that I love is that you really get to know people. Because they see you for all of their lives pretty much. You get to know their stories. You need not just knowing all of their medical history, but you actually know where they come from, their family structure, their struggles as well. And you become kind of part of their family.
I love everything. And I don't love it all the time, but in general, I love everything that I do. And so I think the most important thing for me is like, I love that I'm able to reconnect with my culture and with being Filipino. I was able to learn so much about Philippines and about my parents, about how my parents grew up and learning about our cultural difference, like the cultural differences, able to understand a little bit more about my family's history. And just like I really love that that's what I get to do in my work. And like I was able to turn my heritage and my search for that feeling of connection into a form of livelihood for myself, which in turn is creates livelihood for other Filipinos, because we're really focused on Filipino artisans and also creating employment in our community. So I think that's something that's really amazing. greatest challenge was really just like trusting myself. When we actually first started our business for Cameo Co, our vision was always to focus on Filipino products, all made in Philippines, Filipino customers. That was really our focus, like our dream from the beginning. But early on, people kind of told us that that was a bad idea. It's like, you're never going to be a real business. You're never going to be able to make any money if you are focused on like only your community, right? And so I really, I believed them, because who am I? I've never been an entrepreneur. I didn't really know anyone in my family who has grown a business. So I listened to those people, and I kind of like, we went down this different path, selling not only products from Philippines, but products from all of these other countries too, because I didn't think it was enough to just be Filipino. And I actually did that. We did that for like the first 4 years of our business. And it was a really, really challenging time, because I just felt like I really watered my vision down. I didn't listen to myself. I listened to everyone else but myself. And in the end, we weren't making any money. So it was really like a financial struggle. I was like working reception and minimum wage jobs for a while in order to pay the bills. And I just remember feeling really, just really discouraged and just so, just sad during that time.
The greatest challenge that I had to kind of overcome in starting out and kind of getting into social work is, aside from like my funding my post-secondary education, would be creating connections, and like having that connections to get into like the agencies and like trying to find jobs in terms of that, because I didn't know any social workers.
I think my biggest challenge was applying my application process in getting an internship, because I thought to myself, if I don't get an internship, and it's really important, if you don't get an internship and you finish off fourth year, it's really hard for you to get a entry level job, because interns who have gotten co-op positions the year before and you haven't, they hold an advantage over you. And so I thought to myself that like I need to get a internship during my third year.
I guess the greatest challenge is it's just the length of time of training, and remaining focused on your target and your goal. Um, because it's almost tempting. I finished university. I'm just gonna start working, and may distract you from your goal. So I think that was the greatest challenge, is to just the stamina of it. I measure fulfillment and success not necessarily in the money or any material kind of anything material. I think I see success as a kind of more holistic. I feel like if you've reached your goal, you're happy with your job, and whatever it is, doesn't have to be a doctor, doesn't have to be a lawyer, but something that you've reached your goal, you maximize your potential. But also the success, I define success also like having time for your hobbies, right? Spending time with your family, having good relationship with your family and friends. I think that's success. That's success in in life in general.
Yeah, success for me, well, it's such a personal question, but success for me is doing something that you love, something that you feel really good at, and something that helps other people. So I think if you're able to find something that's in that middle, something you love, something you're good at, something that helps other people, the money comes automatically. Like it will come naturally to you, because you're doing something you're really good at and something that people need or people want, and that actually helps them, then the money will flow. And I think that's what success really is to me, is finding that perfect balance of all of those different things. And it might change from different seasons of your life. You might be passionate about one thing in one time of your life and then it'll change later on. But as long as you're always staying true to yourself and always being curious, that's, you'll always be successful.